Hi, it's Jo Bailey. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all things brain. Recently, if you've been watching me, I have been spending hours, way too much time on the Chris Watts Island, reading, researching, making videos, giving comments, answering comments. And in doing that, there was a 4-word comment on one of the videos that has prompted me to make this video today. Those 4 words were, Chris was pure evil. So in this video, I want to ask whether people like Chris Watts are indeed evil, bad, or whether they are just mad, crazy, and what makes people perform acts that most of us would label pure evil. So I want to provide just a little bit of theoretical background here, and I'll do this very quickly. There's 4 things that are contributing factors. Let's have a look at those. Are some people just made bad apples, meaning that they never really stood a chance from the beginning? We'll call this dispositional contributing factors. Or are people molded? Are they made based on their environment and their circumstances? We're going to call this situational contributing factors. And then there's another element here that often gets overlooked, and that's the broader influences, the economic, the legal, the religious, political and cultural backgrounds of the individual. It's been said that the system is the power that corrupts the individual. And then you have psychologists and psychiatrists like myself that in practice tend to just apply labels to the people we see. These people that commit acts of perceived evil in the world based on the behavior and the thought processes they present to us at the time. We don't really spend a lot of time trying to figure out the why as much as we do tick some boxes, apply a diagnosis, and hope there's a treatment. So we kind of find them defective by some other means, such as mental illness, insanity, or perverse psychopathology. And if someone is found to be insane, then in a way we absolve them a little bit from their deed. I mean, how can it be their fault if they're just sick? And these are mitigating factors in law and in forensic psychology. So these categories help to explain evil actions. Recapping: dispositional, situational, systemic, and sick. But sick could really fit into any of those boxes, right? You could be born sick, you could become sick, or the system could have manufactured your sickness. So where does evil fit into this then? It becomes a very shady grey area because often it's a little bit of all of those things. Think of Chris Watts, for example, or some other person that you might label as evil. And let me ask you now, what makes them evil? Now, you'll probably respond based on what they did. So in Chris Watts's case, you might say he's evil because he murdered his whole family. But that's just the act. That's the behavior. The question then becomes, what caused him to behave that way? And you would then probably be forced to choose from one of those categories. Well, he was born bad, or maybe it's his parents or his environment that made him bad, or maybe it's the broader system that influenced the bad, or maybe he was mad, the category of sick that I just mentioned. Possibly it's a little bit of each of those. But there are other people with the same contributing background variables, be it dispositional, situational, systemic, or sick, that don't go on and murder their families. So we still haven't really answered the question about evil. The thing is, we are surrounded by psychopaths. Did you know that it is estimated that in a group of about 100 people, 5 to 15 of them are going to load on psychopathic traits, to varying degrees, of course. But there are psychopaths among us at work, next door, but they don't all kill their families. If someone is born evil, then we would see the emergence of evil behavior from a young age that's independent and not related to their environment, not related to parental influence and broader systems. Truth is, none of us are born into a vacuum, and there is no possible way to test this, given we will always be influenced by the things around us in a massive way from the second we are born. We may be born with variable personality traits, some with much higher vulnerability and loading on criminality, but the idea of being born evil is extremely unlikely, as there is no single gene capable of producing criminal behavior or evilness. It also leaves us why seemingly good people turn evil. Like Chris Watts, for example, he never had a criminal history. He had no identifiable pre-existing psychopathic behaviours. There were no red flags. He never hurt animals that we know of. He didn't start fires. He was never controlling or violent. I believe he had one speeding ticket to his name. So this idea of a seemingly good person becoming incredibly evil is something referred to in a book by Phillip Zimbardo called The Lucifer Effect, Understanding How Good People Turn Evil. Lucifer being once the beautiful radiant angel of light in heaven who turned against God and was cast out of heaven and renamed Satan. We always have free choice. Always. The Lucifer Effect raises a fundamental question about human behavior. How is it possible for ordinary, average, even good people to become perpetrators of great evil? And yet we see it. We see it time and time again and throughout history. The author, Zimbardo, suggests we waste our time focusing on determinants like genes, personality, and character traits. And in doing so, we tend to ignore what he says might be the most critical catalyst for evil, the system that creates and maintains the situation. He says if you want to change a person, then you've got to change the situation. If you want to change the situation, you have to change where the power is in the system. For Chris Watts, that might be to change him, he had to change the situation, which was being stuck in the marriage and wanting a new life. To change the situation, he had to change where the power was in the system being his religious, cultural upbringing, and the societal script that doesn't condone cheating or polygamy. If it was a different system, it might be a different situation, and therefore potentially create a different behaviour. Look, I'm not advocating for cheating or polygamy here, just providing a working example for this theory. But do you really think you are exempt from doing something horrible, something abhorrent or cruel to another human being? Is there something about you that is different? Well, the psychs and the psych enthusiasts among us will all know about the famous Stanley Milgram experiments. Stanley Milgram was this Jewish guy from the Bronx, and he wanted to know if the Holocaust could happen somewhere else. Would people just turn evil and do atrocious things if the situation and the system prompted them to? Would you electrocute a stranger if Hitler or the system told you to do so? Most people think, no way, people who would do something like that are evil. And so ensued a very unethical social experiment conducted in the early 60s, where a bunch of everyday random people were tested for this, whether a good person would commit horrible acts just because they are told to do so. The experiment's true hypothesis was hidden from the participants. They were told it was an experiment about learning and memory. The participants were told they would be placed into one of two groups, that there would be learners, and they were the people who would be strapped into a chair and have to learn new memory tasks. And there would be teachers, and these would be the ones who would be responsible for pressing a button to deliver an electric shock to the learner if they got the task wrong. Now, the learner in the situation, the person getting the shocks, was a Confederate. He was in on it. He wasn't real. But the participants who were pushing the button and delivering the electric shock didn't know that. They thought he was a real participant getting real electric shocks at their hands. The teacher is told to administer an electric shock every time the learner got the task wrong or made a mistake, and the voltage would be increased on each occasion. So the first shock was about 15 volts, which is hardly felt by the learner, but then it would go up incrementally to 450 volts, which the teachers were made aware was a very painful and severe shock. When the teachers would refuse to administer the shock, the experimenter would give little prompts. Please continue, or the experiment requires you to continue. You have no other choice but to continue. And at the end of that experiment, what we learned was that 65%, or 2/3 of the participants, the teachers, continued to press the button and delivered shocks up to the highest level, 450 volts. 65%. But even more disturbing is that all of the participants, 100% of them, continued to press the button up to 300 volts. So the researchers concluded from this experiment that people like you and me are likely to follow orders given by an authority figure. And in some occasions, those orders result in killing an innocent human being. Obedience to authority is ingrained in all of us from the moment we are born. So in Chris Watts' case, what if he was told to do it? What if he thought he was told to do it? What if he thought he had no other choice? I made this video to talk about how evil can emerge in good people, not necessarily to talk about Chris Watts. And yet here I am talking about Chris Watts. So let me also say, I am not at this point suggesting anyone told Chris to do it or that he thought he had to do it. But evil is a construct that is fluid. There is no gene or concrete determinant, and there is no knowing who among us harbor that fragile mix of vulnerabilities, of dispositional, situational, systemic, and illness that, under the right testing environment or conditions, could switch us from an angel of light to the devil himself. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves and each other and have a very happy and peace-filled day. Bye for now. If you found this video to be helpful, then please consider liking or subscribing to my channel. That allows me more opportunity to provide free content for you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other and have a very happy and peace-filled day. Bye now.